This month's Where Did the Road Go is sponsored by the following amazing individuals: Greg Ross, Billuminati, Allison Cook, Yvonne Williams, Super Inframan, 36 Dingo, and Michael Frisky. Thank you all for helping to make this show possible. And if you'd like to help out, become a patron at wheredidtheroadgo.com. It's only $3 a month for lots of extra content.
Transmission start. Welcome to Where Did the Road Go? Join us as we wander off the path and explore lost history, consciousness, the paranormal, unexplained mysteries, alternative thought, and much more. We are present on the web at wheredidtheroadgo.com. Now here is your host, Seriah.
Welcome to this Wandering the Road edition of Where Did the Road Go? And I am here with Saxon Super Infrared Man. I'm looking for more terms.
Thank you so much.
And Brennan Store.
Always good to be here.
I'm sorry, Brendan. I don't know how to muck up store. I'm sorry.
Can I hang up someone else's phone? Is that possible?
Yes. You can disconnect other people on this one.
There we go.
I'm already missing Skype, but we're using Talkie because I don't want to the thing about Skype, people were like, why were you still using Skype? And it's like, because it was free and did what I wanted it to do. I don't need all this stuff that like Riverside and all these other companies do where they have all this extra editing stuff. And I do all that on my own. I don't need that.
And their tools are always
better ways to do
terrible.
it too.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, I just want something simple. Talkie is free. It doesn't let us record, but that's okay because I don't need that functionality. I just need a nice, clear connection. And people are like, well, why don't you use Discord? Because Discord has really good, quality sound on it. But when I'm bringing on a 70-year-old author, trying to get them to understand how to use Discord is not going to be fun.
I got to be honest with you. This 42-year-old author isn't great with it.
Yeah, I'm not great with it either because I don't use it that much. I don't have time to use it that much. So, an example of how my days go and why sometimes it takes me a while to get to things. So, I went to sleep much later than I wanted to last night, which is pretty much normal by, like 2 or 3 hours. Then couldn't get to sleep. And then, like I was working on and I posted it. People will be able to see it. It's probably a few weeks back now. But the Connecticut Hill visit that Natalie Saxon and I made back in 2023.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Chris edited it. It looks beautiful. Way better than I would have done editing it. He did some really creative stuff with it. And I just needed to watch through and fix a couple of things. And it's taken me probably a year to get around to doing that. But that's up. And that's cool. There's nothing actually paranormal on there, but it's a very interesting place. And you can hear how spookily quiet it is. And it's been that way.
It was a great visit, because
Yeah.
there was a lot of just interesting things in the cemetery and around it. It was a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to watching it too.
So I went to sleep, like I said, probably 3 hours after I wanted to, which is beyond the time most people are getting up. Because I do most of my work at night. So I get up today around the time I wanted to get up. Maybe I snoozed my phone once, I think. And because I was having an interesting dream and I wanted to see if I could get back to it, and I could not. And I don't even remember what the dream was now. But anyway, after I had to go see a few computer customers, and then I had to go to the store and then get home and do this. And I walk out to the car and the battery is dead. I'm like, cool.
Of course.
I bet I left the dome light on because I was in the car playing around with organizing the wires and stuff. And that was 3 days ago. So if I left a dome light on, which I very possibly could have, the battery probably just drained. So I have my secondary car, which has a bad engine. And because it has a bad engine, I don't use it that much. If I'm gentle with it, it's okay usually, but it still loses coolant and I have to keep an eye on it. But it will not take big hills in Ithaca. So I generally don't drive it to Ithaca, but I needed to go to Ithaca. So I drove that to Ithaca and then got home about an hour before we were to record this. Hadn't eaten, grabbed something to eat real quick, and then I said, do I have time to jump the other car and just let it run for a bit? I'm like, I think I can do this. So I pulled the two cars together, and I'm like, all right, okay. I opened both hoods, okay, easy to reach batteries, great. Because like one of my cars in the past had a battery in the back seat. That was fun to find. I have no idea what the logic there was, but I'm like, why is there no battery? And I had to look it up, and it's like, oh, it's under the back seat. I'm like, why would you? Okay, you know. So then I go, okay, let me grab my jumper cables. So I go to the car that runs, and there's no jumper cables. I'm like, oh, must be in the other car, whose trunk I can't open because the battery is dead. So I look around. There's no way to get into the trunk without power. And those are the only jumper cables I had. And I'm like, oh, come on. Really? I mean, it's not urgent that I got it jumped right now, but like, I figured I'm going to do this, just take it care of it, and then, you know, that. And then I'm like, okay, well, I got a battery charger. I'll go get that. Then I can't find my long extension cord, and the shorter one doesn't reach. And I'm like, okay, now I got to find the long extension cord. And, you know, the time I had between then and when we started this show pretty much just disappeared, just evaporated, because I'm just doing all this stuff and running into roadblock after roadblock. And these are how my days go.
I prefer my days being boring. I'm not minding that right now.
Boring is good.
I did have some poltergeisty stuff happen. I had 3 things, and the first one. So I had the car that doesn't have the bad engine that I usually take to Ithaca. It's like a 2008 Hyundai, and the suspension on it's fine, but it's very stiff. So you hit a bump, you really feel it. And there's a set of railroad tracks in Ithaca, and the first time I hit them with that car, my phone flew out of the holder and landed face down on the shifter. And apparently cracked the screen. I didn't notice at first because it was very subtle. And until something bright was on the screen, I was like, what's that hair? Oh, that's a crack. And then I had to think about it. I'm like, when did I drop the phone? Oh, now I know when that came. Okay. So I ignored it for maybe a year at this point. And finally, it started getting worse, and so I have coverage to fix it for nothing. So I brought it in and showed them the phone, and then they had to order the screen because my phone's old, and I don't plan on upgrading as long as it works. And so they fixed this, they got the screen in, they fixed it, got it back to me, and I was like, okay, awesome, fixed screen. So that Saturday, which I think was the next day, we had 2 bands in studio for Last Exit, and the second band was about to play, and they were about to play for 2 hours. And which was way longer than we expected. It had already been a long night, and they were late. And so I set up my my backup phone as the camera for the drummer. And then I'm sitting inside waiting for them to get ready, or maybe they had already started. And my phone, which is sitting flat on my desk, flips off the desk and lands face down on the floor. And I just kind of turned and looked at it. I'm like, I didn't touch you. What just happened? And I pick it up, and I'm joking to myself, watch the screen be cracked, because I just got it fixed yesterday. And I picked it up, the screen was fine, I put it on the desk, and go about doing stuff. And a little while later, I pick up the phone, and the screen is no longer responding to touch. And I'm like, oh, awesome. So I grabbed an adapter, plugged the keyboard in. I'm like, okay, the phone still works. I'll bet when they put the screen in, it either broke the solder point when it fell, it wasn't like done right, or whatever. Apparently it was a ribbon, and the ribbon just came loose. But the point is, it was sitting flat on my desk, not on the edge, on the desk, and it just flipped into the air and landed flat on the floor. They did fix it in like 30 minutes and like gave me the phone back, and I immediately dropped it in the parking lot. And I was like, oh, well, I guess that's a good test. I picked it back up like, yep, still works. Okay. Like I went to put it in my pocket and missed.
Oh my gosh.
So I just launched it at the concrete, and it was like, boom, boom, boom. I'm like, all right, well. And then I had been at a customer's house, and as I was leaving her house, all this noise breaks out in her garage. And it sounds like somebody's just shuffling through the stuff in the garage. And maybe it was an animal. But this was the middle of the day. They were there mowing the lawn, and there's like no real obvious entrance where all this noise was coming from. And I'm just like, okay, that's weird. Like, it's not as weird as my phone flipping off the thing, but like, I started to walk to the car, and I went, no, wait a minute. What is making that noise? And I went back, and it stopped. And I was like, oh, of course. All right. And then there was a point where I walked onto my porch, and one of the windows starts rattling. And I'm like, what the hell is that? It's not windy. And I walked over, and I pressed my hand against the window, and it stopped rattling. I'm like, okay. And then I left the porch, and I came back on the porch, and it starts rattling again. And I'm like, what? I don't know what's happening right now.
Huh.
Like little things. Those are the little things that happen to me that I don't make a big deal about because I don't know. You know, like if it was windy out, obviously the wind would have been rattling the window, but it would have also been rattling the other windows. It was only one window that was rattling. That one I have no explanation for, but I realized like after a while, I'm like, there were like 3 poltergeisty things that happened in like 3 days.
It's like something's trying to get your attention.
Yeah. Well, it got my attention. I don't know what it wants to do with it. Nothing else has happened.
It's like me hitting on someone at a bar when I was younger. There's no follow through.
I'd say, what about now? But you're married, so it wouldn't work.
I am married, and honestly, even if I wasn't, they would still not work. So.
Are you having any other like Kundalini experiences too, or anything like that lately?
Yeah, actually, I was on a show last night, and I can't remember the name of the podcast off the top of my head. We have a very good conversation, and it just started. My spine just started hurting at the base, and I'm like, "Why? Don't do this during a show. This sucks." But yeah, that I think was that, and it's just I've been getting bursts of energy, which is really good because I can get a lot of stuff done when that happens. It's almost like being manic, like the energy just starts moving, and I can feel my spine pulsate, and it doesn't hurt. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, now I want to do a million things, you know?
Right. Oh, interesting to see how much that correlates when you have some of these poltergeist experiences, you know, over time.
Yeah, and
or if there's any.
And because the Kundalini stuff just kind of comes and goes on a regular basis, I don't really think to correlate it to what else is going on because it's always kind of there.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, there could be a direct correlation between that.
Direct, or, you know, one's a response to the other, or, you know, I don't know. It'd just be interesting to kind of like keep track of at some point.
I feel like something else happened, but I don't know what it was. What were you going to say, Brendan?
I was going to say, I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were sort of having this conversation about how it feels like things are kind of in flux right now. Energetically, it feels like there's, at least in our neck of the woods, it just seems like there's a lot of things moving. You know, there was a night here, because I live not too far from the river, and there was a night here where I was thinking about going out. I think it was actually the night I was going to go see Final Destination. And say about 9:30, I thought, yeah, I'm going to do that. So I started putting my shoes on, getting my stuff, and all of a sudden something shifted. And I thought, nope, no, I'm not going anywhere. And not only was it dark outside, it actually got darker in my apartment. The shadows actually thickened.
Huh.
And I've lived here 6 months. That hasn't happened. So it just seems like it's some, I don't know, it's some different point in the energetic cycle. I mean, even, you know, Seriah, there's a story I told you, which I can't, you know, I'm not going to talk about on air, but like that happened 2 weeks ago now, the message. And I think that the fact that I got that message when I did right in the middle of the cycle, it just seems like, yeah, things are kind of stirred up. So I wonder if that's partially why you're dealing with what you're dealing with.
Maybe. So the podcast I was on the other night was the Soul on the Highway to Heaven podcast.
Oh, interesting.
And we had a very good conversation. One of the things I wrote, I'm just looking at my notes to see what I wrote down. And May 27th, there was a knock on the inside of my eyelids that woke me up.
Oh,
that's what I wrote. And I'm going, I don't remember what happened, but obviously I must have felt a knock on the inside of my eyelids.
That's a new one on me.
Yeah, that sounds like it would feel awful.
And I know it startled me, but like that, and I wrote that down because I didn't want to forget. But of course, then I went back to sleep and apparently didn't remember.
Do you normally get the knocking, or is that like when you're sleeping? Is that a common thing you've experienced?
Oh yeah, but not on my eyelids.
No, that's fair.
It will just I'll just hear, and it's always 3 knocks. And my first response is always, is someone at the door? And I'll turn on the camera that looks at the door, and I'll be like, nope, there's nobody there. Okay. Because sometimes I'm not asleep. Sometimes I'm like trying to get to sleep, and I'll hear knock, knock, knock. Okay.
I remember I guess pre-pandemic, I used to go for sensory deprivation floats quite regularly. Okay. And I went, this one I went, and it's a lovely experience. If you guys haven't done it, I highly recommend it if you find a good place. You get the room for an hour and a half. The actual float part lasts for an hour, and the rest of the time is just, you know, you have to shower before you get in the tube, and then you shower after you get out of the tube because you're covered with salt. And so you go in and just get comfy. The lights go off. You bring the top of the pod down, and you're laying there in the dark. And quite often I'll fall asleep. But one time I was woken up. I was asleep. I must have been asleep. It's pitch black, so you can't tell the difference. But there was 3 sharp bangs on the wall behind me. And I thought, oh, okay, I guess my time's up. So I kind of moved. I reached over, I turned on the light, and I opened the pod. But when I got out and checked my phone, it had only been about 45 minutes. So I still had plenty of time. And I thought, well, I'm out of the thing now. So I cleaned up, went to the front desk, and I said to the guy there, I said, hey, what's on the other side of the wall from that particular room? He goes, oh, that's the parkade. And I said, oh man, I said, someone must have been having a bad day because they banged on the wall, woke me right up. And he gave me this kind of funny look, and he said, well, he's like, the parkade's not right there. He said, there's an air gap, like a significant air gap between that. And then it's the wall of the parkade is a concrete wall. So just, one of a couple odd experiences I had going to that place in the sensory deprivation chambers. That was, I think, like the most obvious, the loudest. The other one was just more of like a sensory enhancement experience, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was laying in there, and again, the whole point is that there's no sound, there's no sight. You're vibing out in this sort of very liminal space. And I remember laying there, and I could hear people down the hall talking to the guy at the front counter, and I was really annoyed. And I thought, geez, like, why is this so loud? The whole point of this is that I can't hear anything. But when I talked to the guy at the front desk, and they're probably grateful I stopped going. He said, no, man, he said, you cannot hear. Those rooms are soundproof. That's the whole point.
Right.
But somehow I was able to hear him having a conversation with someone through the door, down the hall, around the corner, while I was in this enclosed pod.
Maybe you were slightly out of body.
I kind of wonder, because every now and again that'll happen. I'll hear something and I'll be told, well, no, you can't. Like, physically, it wouldn't have been possible for you to hear that.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
I did one of those tanks one time, and it was really cool. And I just never had the time to make time to do one again, Brennan. But they're really neat. The effect is, I mean, you have that like body disassociation so quick that, if you've got a lot of people that have been using those that are going to good places or wherever, I always kind of see that as like stacking intention on top of each other in one location.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you think all the people that come in and out that have, gone into those pods, and like some of those folks probably can get to pretty deep states of meditation.
Yeah.
So I think you actually start, or, at least I think there's a hypothesis of, things being a little bit more malleable in those spots.
Interesting.
I don't know. Yeah. I've always kind of wondered that. I bought I think I talked about this in the Slack at one point, but it was before you and I met, Brennan. But I had gone to a yoga studio in Manhattan that had subwoofers built into the floor.
Oh,
yeah. And they would play, some of the different sort of like Tibetan singing bowl, like very low hums through the subwoofers in the floor. And you would feel the course, vibration moved through your body. And the experience was similar in some ways to what I kind of felt like in the deprivation tank, but, completely different way to get to that sort of state of mind. And I finally found a sound pack that's like a backpack that it's basically subwoofers that you put on with straps. Okay. And it creates a similar experience. It's
interesting.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm trying to remember. I think it's called a bass pack is the version I found that was like affordable, and they market them for like silent concerts and things. But you can look down about like the third or fourth bullet, and they're like sound healing. And if you want to put on like headphones with that and listen to holosync kind of things or whatever else, it's a complementary experience, I think, to the deprivation tanks.
Interesting.
But it's for me, it's another way to cheat at meditation, just because I get deeper so much faster.
I don't think that's cheating.
No, it's not. It's not. And I'm ADHD enough that like I get so frustrated sometimes trying to meditate or any of that. So it works well.
So I was
go ahead, Seriah.
Oh, I was saying I was looking at my notes and I realized that the first Poltergeist thing was definitely the phone. But also that was a super stressful night. Because like I said, we had two bands play, and the first band showed up an hour early, and then the second band showed up an hour and a half late. And the second band, like I said, they wanted to play for 2 hours after already showing up late, which generally would be a problem, but we were all exhausted. Like everyone here was just beat, and we're like, oh, now you want to play for 2 hours? And then they took literally, I think, almost 3 hours to get set up. And part of that was my sound guy, because there was a saxophonist, and he had never done a saxophone before. And
interesting.
The saxophonist he was very good, but he was like 80, and he couldn't really hear that well. So he's like, Nathan's trying to hook all this stuff up. And he's like, how does this work? What's going on? And he was, my sound guy's Nathan. And Nathan's being super patient with him, you know? And I'm like, oh man, his head's going to explode when he gets inside, but he's doing really good right now. And the thing is, he liked the guy, so he wasn't like he wasn't as frustrated as I expected him to be when he finally came inside to where he runs sound from. I'm like, you all right? And he's like, yeah, it's just taking a while. And I'm like, okay, because you were being really patient. He's like, he's a really nice guy. It's just
he wasn't good at least,
huh? Yeah, and he just wasn't, understanding what Nathan was doing was basically what it came down to. But I'm realizing we were all very stressed and tired when the phone thing happened. Like everyone in the band was nice. It wasn't a problem with the band. It was just the situation, and also he brought a huge trailer with him. And it was like, can you back it into my driveway? Because everything's soaked. Everything here has been raining nonstop for like 2 months. So everything is mushy. And I'm like, he's like, I can't back it in. I'm like, okay. He's like, can I drive over the lawn? I'm like, I guess you're going to have to, which left tire tracks around the lawn. I'm like, oh, cool. More tire tracks. Excellent. But so I'm wondering if all that stress, even though, like I said, it wasn't necessarily a bad night, but if that stress may have kicked in the PK energy that flipped the phone off the desk.
Yeah, I think I've told you. I think I've told you before about the dude I know who his wife knows when he's stressed because when he's asleep the closet door rattles.
Oh yeah, I do remember you saying
that's
that.
Cool.
So yeah, it makes if it's going to be anything, the stress causing the PK makes a lot of sense.
Well, I mean that is one of the things that happens when people are stressed or whatever. That's when PK energy tends to peak. So I just hadn't really thought about that, even though I started talking about how, like, the band, I couldn't use the phone because it was filming the band, or the other phone, my backup phone that's like 6 years old or whatever. But I had to wait till the band was done so I could switch my phone. Yeah.
That makes sense.
But I hadn't thought about the fact that was also a very stressful night just because of like how long everything was taking, the time screw ups and all that stuff. And the guy had a very good reason for being late. It wasn't like he was just inconsiderate or anything. Like I said, they were all very cool people. And it just, we were all very tired.
Yeah.
So,
hey, real quick. Go ahead, Brennan, and I'll add this in.
What's up?
Oh, I thought you were about to talk, and I was talking over you guys. I apologize.
No.
You apologized for nothing.
I was just going to add, before we get too far away from it, you mentioned Final Destination. There was an article going around about 3 days ago that one of the screenings of the roof of the theater caved in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was down in Texas. We were just talking about that on the Ghost Story Guys live stream.
Okay. Yeah, when you said you got the bad feeling before you went and everything being in flux, I was like, oh, we need to mention that too, just because that was such an oddball.
Yeah.
Like, of course, that would happen at a Final Destination screening.
Of course, the big question is now who had the premonition that got everyone out of there safe?
Yeah, right. I don't know. I feel like Tony Todd passing away, put some energy into that movie.
Oh man, have you seen it?
No.
I've seen his last scene.
Yeah, and man, it's something. It's actually a really good movie. I quite enjoyed it, but apparently, actually, I'm looking at a website called Fact Crescendo. I don't know how true this is. It says that the ceiling collapse was not actually during Final Destination.
Oh,
well, that sucks. Never mind.
Disappointing.
So his last scene, if I'm remembering right, was not in the script.
From what I've read, there are some of the lines were scripted, and then his final monologue is apparently freestyle. It's improv,
and is very apropos to him passing away shortly afterwards.
Yes, yeah, because he was very visibly ill. I mean, we all remember, or at least I remember, Tony Todd as a very burly, very big man, and by the end, he still has incredible presence because you can't take that away from a guy, but he's so skinny.
Yeah,
it was especially jarring because I just finished playing Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
How is that?
Sorry, go ahead.
How is that?
Oh, it's fantastic.
Okay,
I adored it. Yeah, no, I love it. It's like playing if there was a a good Indiana Jones sequel after Last Crusade, but you got to play it.
Huh, okay.
It's so much fun. And Tony Todd turns up as one of the, at first you think he's a villain, but he turns out to be something a little more complex. And of course, because it's all mocap, he's portrayed as you remember him from, say, Candyman. So then to see him a couple of days later in Bloodlines and see that he was, quite ill towards the end. I mean, I knew he was ill, but to actually visually see it was much more emotionally affecting than I expected.
So, there was speaking of bands that we've had up in the studio, I had this conversation recently with a band, and well, I'll tell the story first of all because it's a weird story. The drummer from Drama Scream last year, they are the only band that has played every year since the first year they came up, which I think was 2018, and they played in like January of 2020, so they actually played the year of the pandemic, which most bands didn't. So we've kept that going as much as we can. Like, okay, now that you've played every year, let's see how long we can keep getting you booked every single year to play a set. And they were supposed to play on my birthday last year, and the guitar player writes me and goes, "We gotta postpone." And I said, "Okay, why? What's up?" And he goes, "Well, our drummer got into a motorcycle accident and like totally messed up his foot. Like he sent me a picture of the foot, like the skin is just ripped off his foot." And I'm like, oh my God, what happened? He's like, he hit a goat at 60 miles an hour.
Oh man.
Oh gosh.
So apparently the goat just walked out in front of him, and in his motorcycle, he slammed into the goat, beheaded the goat, and flew off the bike and like just totally destroyed his foot. It's okay now. Now this was last September. He's playing with them now. But then when they had come up, they got a replacement drummer because he was in no condition to play before the end of the year. So they got a fill in, and they came up and played. And we're talking about what happened to him, and they're like, yeah, and then there was the time with the owl. And I went, I vaguely remember this. Same guy, driving along the road, window down, in a car, an owl flies in the window, slams into his head, and knocks him out.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, okay, what are the chances that these things are going to happen to the same person? And I was talking to the last band we had here, and I mentioned that, and he goes, and he's from upstate New York, and he goes, I've never even seen an owl. And I'm like, how have you? He's like, yeah, owls are really rare. And I'm like, are they? Because I see tons of them. And so now I'm wondering, how rare are owls in upstate New York? Because it seems like they're not that rare. I mean, it's certainly rare that one's going to fly in your car window.
Yeah, I don't know. Flying in the car window would be enough for me to like reevaluate a lot of my life choices and decisions. That's maybe I am on the wrong path.
The owl's trying to knock some sense into you.
Yeah, God specifically pitches an owl through your car window. That's very specific.
Yes. Mike Clellan would have a lot to say about that.
Man, I should ask him. I mean, I had one where it was an exceptionally large owl sitting on like just the white line on the side of the road. And I had this truck right on top of me, behind me. This is like an area where you're doing 55, 60. And I see this owl, and I'm like, what? Oh, it's an owl. Because it was big enough to see from a distance. And then just as I get up to him, he decides he's going to fly. Nice. And even though I kind of veered to the left to get away from him, I was afraid to slow down because this truck was so close behind me. So I just kind of veered over to the left, and he took off in flight. And while his wings were totally outstretched, he tapped the car. And he just spiraled upwards and over the car with his wings completely outstretched. It was completely surreal. Probably even more so for the trucker.
Oh, to see the owl spinning around in the air?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would do it.
So, I mean, I assume it killed it. I don't know, because I was afraid to even slow down because this guy was doing 60 miles an hour right on my tail. Mm-hmm. Braking quickly at that point was probably not a smart idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, at that point, whatever's in front of you is taking one for the team.
And like I said, I veered to try and avoid it, but there was nothing I could do. I mean, I had one that picked up and another huge one started flying alongside my car one day. And I looked over and I'm like, oh my God, that's a giant owl. And it's just flying alongside my car along the field. And then it was dark, but I could see it clearly. And I was like, okay, that was significant.
Yeah.
I got to say, man, I've seen like 2 owls in my life.
But you're not in upstate New York. I'm wondering how rare they are in upstate New York.
Yeah, that's fair.
Let's ask the all-knowing Google. Is seeing an owl in upstate New York rare? Yes. Seeing an owl, especially certain species, can be considered rare in upstate New York. Well,
interesting.
I've seen a lot of owls.
That's fascinating.
This is one of those things I've just never thought about until that guy said, I've never seen an owl. And I'm like, what? How have you never seen an owl?
Yeah. So being in the South, I'm in a place that's not as rural as where I grew up by any means, but it's still pretty rural if you go 10 miles in any direction. But there are 2 owls that live in my neighborhood and see them all the time. And I'm not far from the downtown of where I'm at. And so, you'll just hear them outside.
Yeah.
There's a field. It's actually somebody's property where at one point in time, I think it used to be a farm and it got sort of developed over the decades into houses and things like that around it.
Right.
But the field's kind of in the middle of the houses behind it. And so that's where they hang out because they have a whole field out there where they can hunt and nobody's going to bother them. And you just hear every once in a while they'll really let out one of the loud hoots that resonates through the house and you can feel it in your chest. And that's pretty cool. But they're owls. There's not, most of the time anyway, I don't think these things are messengers of anything like that.
Right.
But definitely had other times when I've come across an owl somewhere and I'm like, man, that was really weird.
I still have the pine tree. But there was a point where there were 8 owls living in that pine tree.
Oh, good gosh.
Holy man.
And the reason I know how many is because if you walked a certain distance toward the pine tree, especially at night, they'd all just bolt out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, I'm like, okay, I'm going to walk toward the pine tree and I'm going to start counting owls.
Wow.
And I don't know what kind they were, but we actually have people stop along the road who are bird watchers. And apparently there is a particularly rare owl that likes this property and the property across the road, which is a field. And they will just sit there, especially in the winter, looking for this owl.
Wow.
Because finally one day, there's cars just sitting in front of my yard. And I'm like, what's this person doing? They've been there a long time and it's cold out. And, I'm thinking, are they trying to steal my internet? What's going on? So I walked out and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And then they handed me a pamphlet about the owl.
Oh, wow.
And then they talked to me for 20 minutes about it. I'm like, okay, I'm cold. Otherwise I'd keep talking to you.
So you have a rare owl sanctuary on your property.
Yeah. And across the road.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy, Seriah.
I don't know, man. If you've got 8 owls on your property, I think those owls have a Seriah sanctuary.
Yes, exactly.
But I mean, I hear and see owls on a fairly regular basis. So it's kind of like when he, like I said, when he said that, I was like, wait, they're rare? It's rare to see an owl? Really?
Yeah, like I said, I can think of one for sure. It was actually weirdly in downtown Victoria in the daytime. It seemed very confused. And I think there was one here in Ontario at night, but that's it. I think, and the movie Lord of Tears, where the scary villain that haunts the old Scottish manor is some kind of owl creature called Moloch. But aside from that, that's it.
Brendan, you had something that happened to you recently that was weird, didn't you?
Yeah, well, there was a couple things. Like I said, there was the one story, which I hate being that guy who's like, oh, that thing that happened that I can't talk about, but I'm just not comfortable. I guess, Saxon, I can tell you about it off air, but then I started monkeying around with Randonautica again.
Yeah.
And now even though I do ghost story guys, I write the horror show Fear Daily, I've been pretty disconnected from the paranormal for the last little while. It just isn't, I don't know. It seems to kind of be on a different wavelength than me. I don't know if maybe I was still kind of putting myself back together after everything, pandemic and all that stuff. I just didn't have the bandwidth. I have no idea, but a little while ago, I thought, man, I had some fun with Randonautica during the pandemic, just walking around Victoria. I should do that again. I should do that here, but in London. So I paid for the app, and because I'm writing so much for the other show, I basically my intention was always inspiration.
Right.
So that would be like inspiration, and go. So the first place it took me to was a dirt road in an industrial part of the city. And what it took me to was an easy chair that someone had just left by the side of the road. And it was covered in snow, but it was exactly where the coordinates the map took me to was this easy chair. And so I thought, okay, this is working for me. Let's try some other stuff. And it took me to the one spot, which was a suburban backyard, which was, obviously that wasn't happening. But then there was a park, and this park, there was absolutely no one in there, but it was trying to take me to the furthest, darkest corner of this suburban park. And honestly, if there hadn't been so much snow, I might have actually gone in there to see what it was pointing me towards. But I wasn't having it. So I tried a couple more. And that night, the last one I did, I ended up in a parking lot of a school. And now bear in mind, at this point, it's about midnight. And what was interesting about this is it was the only time I've been doing this all night where I felt unsafe. I felt like something wasn't right. I felt like I felt watched. And I could hear what sounded like voices, but I was completely alone. And like this place I live in, and I don't mind if folks know, I live in London, Ontario right now. So there's a lot of wide open space here. It's a very like spread out city. So, I mean, it's not impossible. There was someone way far away I was hearing, but it was a still night. It was winter. Of course, the snow dampens a lot of sound. I was just in this parking lot. Something didn't feel right. And I could hear what sounded like a lot of voices talking, but no obvious source for it. So that was fine. However, I think it was that night I woke up in the middle of the night convinced there was someone in my living room. Now, I live on the 6th floor. And it's not it's a very secure building. It's the lock has a chime on it, so if it ever unlocks, it plays a little jingle. So I would have heard that because it's not a big place. But still, I got up, I walked around, and even the flashlight on my phone. You know how earlier I said that the apartment was darker than usual. Even the flashlight on my phone seemed dimmer than it should have been. But there was no one. I couldn't see anything. So I went back to bed, and then a few nights later, I thought, let's do this again. And actually, I should say rather, I went to a neighboring town for coffee the next day, and I tried again. It took me way out into these fields, and the prompt that time was confusion. I don't know why I did that, but as I was driving to the map point, my car got stuck in some wheel ruts in the icy road and started pulling me right off the road. And I had to really fight to stay, and I almost went right into the ditch. And just as I got out of the rut, I got to my map point, and I thought, okay, well, I guess that was the confusion. Am I going to crash this damn thing or not? But the two that really were interesting, one relates to the show, the Fear Daily show that I work on. And Fear Daily is it's a daily horror fiction show that I co-write with Brandon Scheck. So like I've written 254 stories at this point for this show. And so I'm always kind of generating stuff. And there was this one story I wrote last year called Substation. And the genesis of Substation was I was out for a walk in this neighborhood and I saw this house. And then I realized that the house something was odd about it. And I got closer and I realized it was an electrical substation disguised as a house. Okay. So the doors are heavy steel, the windows aren't real. It's not a real house. So I wrote a story based on that. And when I was doing the inspiration thing with Randonautica, again, inspiration hit the button and it took me right to that house.
Oh, wow.
This place I had been months before, because I've actually moved to this neighborhood now, the neighborhood where that house is. So that was kind of funny, whatever, this nice little connection to the past year. So then I did it again. And this is where it gets really, really strange, because it directed me to a house on a street not far away. And when I got to it, it was peculiar because the street was very quiet. The house was dark, but something about it felt off. I couldn't say exactly what, it just felt off. And I thought, well, that's interesting. The thing about the street was it's a very unusual name, which just so happened to be the same name as a character in an obscure sci-fi film that Paul and I were talking about the day before. And again, I can tell you guys off air what the street is, but it's like 3 syllables. It's just a very unusual, I think it's a Romanian name. And so that was odd, but I couldn't get the house out of my mind. So the next night I was hanging out with a friend of mine. I said, hey, I want to take you past the place, because I explained the situation. And we're driving down the street towards this house, and she says to me, oh, it's the one with the light on, right? And I shook my head, and she was pointing across the street. I said, nope. And she said, crap. She said, it's right across the street, isn't it? I said, oh, yeah. Yeah. She said, okay. So I thought so. I was just hoping I was wrong. And as we were slowly creeping past, I realized that you can see, though it looks like the lights are off, you can actually see light in the top left corner of one of the windows. And I realized they had painted over the inside of all the windows.
Oh.
Yeah. London is pretty well known for... because we're on the 401 highway between Detroit and Toronto, the city is pretty infamous for organized crime. I suspect we were looking at a trap house.
I guess.
Trap house?
Sounds like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's a trap house?
Like a place where drugs are packaged or processed Yeah. So that was my thinking. So I thought, okay, well, we're just gonna keep moving and never come back here, because odds are, the place like that, there are cameras and someone's watching.
So how does so I tried Randonautica a couple of times when it was free, and it did absolutely nothing for me. How is it supposed to be working? Like, what's the concept here?
So as I understand it, I would have to look up the actual literature to fully give you the scoop, because I don't remember the exact details, but it's meant to use truly random quantum gobbledygook to assign a map point based on, again, both your intentions, but also it claims to be able to find areas where things are like happening or specifically not happening. Mm-hmm. So again, this is all very vague. It's word soup. I'm finding the, okay, so here we go. This is from their website. Randonautica is a tool created to enhance the human experience with novelty by mindfully exploring the world, the interconnectivity of the universe, and to test the hypothesis that human consciousness can influence the distribution of random numbers through mind-matter interaction. Based on theories stemming from the Fatum project, which I'm not familiar with, the Randonautica app was created to encourage people to venture outside of their day-to-day routine by using a quantum random number generator to derive a truly random coordinate to journey to. So when I first started doing this, they used a lot more, I would say, like sort of dense language to describe what they were doing. But yeah, what they're basically saying is it gives you a random point, and if the idea being that if you, with your intention, you can kind of shape what that point is going to be. And of course, I think the most famous Randonautica story is those teenagers in Seattle who found a suitcase full of body parts under the dock.
Oh wow!
Yeah. That's I can't remember when that happened, but I remember that hitting the news.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine why.
And so I guess I've done it a few different times, but that night, it was very much this is not what I had intended. And for me, when I'm using Randonautica, I feel differently. Like that's one of the few times where I feel like I can actually intentionally tap into whatever you want to call the subtle world, whatever you want to call those sort of energies. Playing around with that, not every location, but I feel like that if there's ever like an assisted way to sort of reach into the pond a little bit, I feel like Randonautica is one of them, at least.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I didn't get much out of it when it was free, and then when I went to try it again, they wanted me to buy it, and I was like, "Oh, you're not free anymore? I'm not paying for something that didn't work for me."
I mean, in fairness, man, I just feel like with the Owl Sanctuary and all these things, it's hard to give you something that's any stranger than what you experience on a day-to-day basis.
That's a great point, Brennan.
I feel like the app is going to send people to your house.
Well, fair.
That's how I got there.
He didn't use no GPS. He used Randonautica.
There you go. I mean, I think you can use. There's like you get 3 free credits a day now or something.
Okay.
So you can, and they've changed it a little bit, so you can also include a photo of whatever it takes you to.
Oh, that's interesting.
Cool. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad they developed it a little bit.
Me too. It seems to have really caught on for a while there. I don't know if it's still popular, but it's a
cool concept, if nothing else.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it seems like you ought to get interesting effects from it. I mean, if you think about, a lot of the side tests were either influencing number generators or, trying to like kind of guess the next number or image or having a response to it that occurs before the image. This kind of feels like a combination between that and like remote viewing.
Yeah.
Sort of. And then you just kind of end up with something that's influenced by your intention.
Their website, I found slightly more in-depth explanation. I say slightly. That's doing a lot of heavy lifting. But it explains the process a little bit more. So it says you set your desired radius, then you select the type of GPS point you'd like to generate. It says there are anomalies, the first of which are attractors. They say attractors are improbably dense clusters of random points within your set radius. Voids are clusters with improbably low density within your set radius. And then it says choosing power will provide you with a point that is the highest power or the most anomalous of an attractor or void. And then finally it says blind spots are simply random points. And then it says set an intention or theme for your trip in your mind while generating the point. This process uses theoretical mind-matter interaction paired with quantum entropy to test the strange entanglement of consciousness with observable reality. Randonauts often find their journeys result in serendipitous experiences that seemingly align with their thoughts.
So if anyone out there listening has had interesting experiences using this app, let us know. Tell us your story.
I'd be very curious to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have sort of a thought experiment here. There's a couple things I had written down here that, anyway, I want to play with here. So obviously a lot of people view this stuff, the paranormal, as scary. And sometimes it manifests as scary, you know? And there might be a lot of reasons for that, but I'm wondering if one of those reasons might be that something might appear frightening to us because it's actually scared of us.
I mean, that's very possible.
You know, like it seems like it's trying to harm us because we're somehow intruding into its reality without realizing it. There's like a soft spot, an area where there's an overlap, and its response to us is to be like, "Hey, get out of here."
I mean, there's that. I've mentioned before. There's that story in Derek Luke. No, the book Other Worlds. I can't remember the author's name.
Okay.
But he talks about Za, this creature that on a DMT trip, he saw. He was tripping on the banks of the Ganges, and he claimed that after he smoked the DMT, and he had done it dozens of times before, this time it took him further than it ever had, and he found himself on this precipice overlooking this strange world that he couldn't even begin to comprehend. He said it was hard to understand. And then he realized between him and it, there was this thing which was made up of many serpentine limbs. And on each of those limbs, there were many eyes. And it started to undulate and almost like it was dancing, like it was trying to distract him from the thing behind it. But he said it was so intense and it frightened him so badly that when he kind of came back to his body, he didn't do DMT again for, I want to say, 10 years.
Oh, wow.
But what he discovered is that this creature exists in Tibetan folklore. It's called Za, Gza, and it's said to guard the void or the border between worlds. And so what it did, like it wasn't trying to hurt him, but it was trying to keep him from going somewhere he shouldn't. And in order to accomplish that, it had to scare him.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of an idle thought at some point, like when someone was talking about something being scary, and I'm like, maybe it's scared of us. Like, I mean, I don't think there's any singular thing going on, but in some cases, maybe we're scaring something else, and it's responding with aggression or trying to puff itself up to look scary.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, which is, a lot of animals have that response in nature to us.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing I keep coming back to when I talk about the paranormal with people is that, if we accept that this stuff is out there, then, it's entirely possible that there is a complete second sort of layer of flora and fauna that are not visible to us, but that we kind of have to parse. And so who's to say that there's not something out there that's some kind of animal that we don't have an analog for, but can be scared of us because it doesn't understand us either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think I think we tend to have this idea that whatever's not us, whatever's on the other side of the veil must know more than we do.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. It's like they're holding the secrets and they're just kind of keeping it from us. Whereas I don't necessarily think I think that goes along with the whole disclosure thing and this idea that somewhere out there, Dad is keeping an eye on things and he's going to let us know what's really going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a very good way to put it. So I was listening to Paratopia Oculus because Jeremy is now putting those up, and I want to go back and ask myself why I didn't ask Jeff for these shows at the time. When they were doing Paratopia, I wasn't aware of Paratopia, and they stopped just before I started Where Did the Road Go? I met Jeff Ritzmann because he was on, and it wasn't even a current episode. I was going back through the archive of Project Archivist shows and happened upon the one, I think it was a two-parter with Jeff Ritzmann. I had no idea who he was. Even though I had submitted something to Project Core, I wasn't aware of who the people doing Project Core were. So, I listened to him on Project Archivist. I'm like, oh my, I need to talk to this guy. I contacted Rosian. Rosian's like, I don't know. He doesn't really do this anymore. And then, I contacted him and he listened to Where Did the Road Go? And he went, yeah, I'll come on. And then that started that whole friendship. But after he started coming on, they started Paratopia Oculus, which is just a takeoff of Paratopia, but without really a schedule, intentionally making it a little more liminal and stuff. And for some reason, I never asked Jeff to send me those shows. And I have no idea why. Like, I plugged the fact that he was doing it, but they cost, they weren't free shows. But I could have just said, hey, Jeff, can you send me the shows? And I'm sure he would have sent them to me, and I never did, and I have no idea why. And no idea why I never said, hey, can you send me your old Paratopia shows? Mm-hmm. But I'm listening to this. They've put up, I think, 2 of them so far. And one of the things that struck me is that Jeff saw this man who would wear a very tall man with a shroud. And it was a black shroud, almost Grim Reaper-ish, it sounds like, which is not uncommon. But, I mean, his experience is pretty unique to it. But one of the things he mentioned that this being told him is that he should go out into nature because it's easier for them to talk to us there. And that struck me of like, why is that? Why would that be? Well, when you're in nature, and I've talked about this with the wilderness poltergeist stuff, when you're in nature, you don't have all the electronics, all the electromagnetic fields from from all the stuff that we have, I mean, we have so much of, you're sitting in your home, you're just inundated with various fields, electromagnetic fields, you have your Wi-Fi, you have your cell phone, you have, just the general EM radiation given off by your electronics in general, not even the ones casting stuff out. So when you go out into like actual wilderness, that stuff is going to lessen. So if there's something else out there that's trying to communicate with us, maybe it has an easier time when we're out there. And maybe our natural PK energy also is more active when we're away from all this stuff that is like kind of interfering maybe with the resonance we normally have with the earth.
I remember the night I stayed at Lizzie Borden's house, this is 11 years ago now, I ran into a psychic guy there, and he was really interesting because he had an experience last time he stayed there, but he didn't really want to talk about it. But we went off into the dining room while everyone else was doing the Ouija board trip, and we just got talking. And one of the things we were saying is I was asking him, like, why do you think people are having fewer experiences? And he said, well, I think part of the problem is that he just held up his cell phone. He said, I think these things fracture our focus so much that we can't sink down far enough to receive the messages we necessarily need to receive. Maybe some people who are very sensitive still can, but he thinks that there are people who might have an experience but now just aren't, because in addition to the radiation potential, things taking up the frequencies and maybe just making it harder to manifest, your whatever focus you might have that is needed to help manifest these things is being kind of stolen and fractured.
Yeah, no, that's true.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
I mean, I make a habit of not attending to my phone constantly. I mean, I see people who have, they're just attached to their phone. There are many times where I don't use my phone for hours, and then I need like the flashlight, and I'm like, all right, where's my phone? And it's always in one of certain places. I make a habit of not putting it in weird, but every once in a while I might use the flashlight, put it in a weird spot, because I'm like trying to get at something or rewire something, and then I leave the phone there, and an hour later I'm like, oh, I should add that to my grocery list, and it's like, where's my phone?
Where is my grocery list?
I mean, so I'm not someone who is like constantly on my phone, constantly going through social media or anything like that. I mean, I just don't have the time to most of the time. But even if I did, it's not something that overly interests me.
Yeah, and I try to do the same, but I tend to use my phone way more than I should, just as almost like a nervous tick kind of thing, like if I'm in a crowd of people and I got a beer in front of me, I'll sip it real fast because it's something to do.
Yeah.
And I'd like to. I always think, oh, maybe I must be unusual that way, or maybe most people aren't like this, but I think it's along the same lines as when I find out how many people are actually using things like ChatGPT on a daily basis. And I'm like, oh man, it's a lot more people than I thought. And so I kind of wonder if you kind of minimizing your use of the phone is really in a pronounced minority.
Could be.
I mean, it might be. I'm like Brennan. I use my phone like a fidget spinner. I mean, and honestly, the weird part of that though is I'm also one of those people that like can't sit and just watch a movie.
Yeah.
And that's always been true for me.
Yeah, same here.
It sort of adds that, outside stimulation to catch up the other things that would pull you in different directions from what I'm trying to focus on. But yeah, I think at some point, even when I do that, it just overtakes me too. I still have strange experiences, which is good, but I do kind of always think the same thing about all of the signals that we have around us all the time that we used to not have.
Yeah.
And I'm not, any kind of negative Nancy about that or doomsayer, but we used to think asbestos was great too.
Yeah.
It was a miracle material from the future.
Yeah.
And, we use lead for a lot of stuff for a long time too.
Sure.
And then, there's microplastics in the world. So I would not be surprised if we at least decide some frequencies are not good for health and some EMF, waves are not good for you either.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't have to sort of look to the physical consequences of radiation, but just what it's done to our brains.
Right.
Yeah.
Like our attention spans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still watch a lot of movies, and I try to watch anywhere from 20 to 30 movies a month if I can.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
But even so, I find it harder and harder sometimes to focus, because if I don't plug my phone in on the other side of the room, I just fidget with it. What's going on? Just quickly, I'll check it. And there's no need. And I just think, again, I still manage to watch 20, 30 movies a month. But I think about people who, they just, it's like Netflix. It's sort of understood that Netflix has a mandate where your characters have to kind of repeat their motivations, because they know their audience is sort of, this is second screen viewing. Their audience is kind of looking at their phone while this is playing in the background.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. We got to take a break. We'll be right back and continue this. Quick mid-show break here. Contact info and a recommendation. So contact info, wheredidtheroadgo.com. Everything is there. There's even a Linktree link, if you don't know what a Linktree is. It's a cool site that gives you access to all my other sites. So if you click on it, it'll take you to a page that links you to everything from my music show to my photography, all my social media pages. And all the social media pages for Where Did the Road Go can be found on the website, as well as every show going all the way back to the very first one. You can also become a patron for only $3 a month. That's it. And it helps us out immensely, as does giving us good reviews, recommending us to people. All of that is massively appreciated. But for that $3 a month, you get extra content with almost every show. You get the shows weeks early. You get them commercial free, aside from the occasional commercial from someone like Tim Renner or something that I'm putting in there as a favor to a friend. But the main commercials that you'll get when you listen to the show will not be there, because they're commercial free. Imagine that. You also get extra bonus stuff for being a patron as well. Check it out. If you like the show, I do not think you'll be disappointed. All right. So for a recommendation, I had to think a little bit about this one. There was a movie I watched sometime in the last couple weeks called Curvature. It came out in 2017, and the description is just an engineer travels back in time to stop herself from committing a murder. It's a fun time travel movie. So if you enjoy that type of stuff, you'll probably enjoy it. It's on Prime Video. It's on Roku, Pluto TV, Fossum. So you can watch it for free with commercials or whatever. It's not a must-see, but if you're like me and you like twisty time travel type of things, Curvature is worth a watch. It's not amazing, but it's good, and I enjoyed it. So that's my recommendation, Curvature. All right, back to the show. So when I watch movies, I watch them in bits most of the time. Mm-hmm. I'll be like, oh, I haven't eaten. I'm really hungry. I make food. I spend 10 or 15 minutes watching the movie. Once I'm done eating, I'm kind of like, I can't just sit here and watch this.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like I either got to grab something else to eat because I'm still hungry, or I'm just going to go work on something. I used to use my laptop and watch stuff, but I almost never use my laptop anymore. Everything I do on my desktop, because it's so much easier to work on the desktop.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have my phone or my tablet, and I might play a game or something while a movie's on, but it depends on the movie. Some stuff you can do that with. You don't have to focus all your attention on it, and you're still getting what's going on. But then there's some stuff where I'm invested in watching, and I want to watch it, but also I feel like I need to be doing something else at the same time.
Yeah, it's that weird productivity thing where you're like, no, I cannot sit. I must be doing. But then also I'm not necessarily doing.
Right. Yeah.
And especially too, for me, just cranking out all these stories, I have to be taking stuff in, because if I've found if I'm not reading, if I'm not taking in art, my stories are are pretty rough. We'll say pretty bad and pretty dry.
I get that. Yeah.
Because you're constantly trying to put out material, but you're not taking anything in. Like I'm a creative guy, but I'm not that creative.
Right. It's good simulation. Otherwise, if you don't have that, you don't end up in some of those places to come up with the ideas you need. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like my wife and I maybe watch a couple movies a month. But part of that is just because she's so busy.
Right.
And she has to get up early. So like, it just doesn't happen. And I end up doing like what Seriah does, where, I've got headphones. I've got some like really cool, like sleep headphones. I think they're called like acoustic sleep. They look like a little fabric headband with.
Oh, cool. I've heard about those.
Yeah, they're kind of, some people don't find them comfortable, but I do. And so you can just, looks like a little fabric headband, and I'll lay in bed while she's asleep and like watch part of a movie or whatever. But the thing that I end up doing, and this is good and bad, but, clips of different movies have ruined me because I won't go back and rewatch the whole movie anymore. I'll just watch the scenes that I want to.
I rarely rewatch anything.
Yeah.
Just because there's so much stuff I want to see. Like, I feel like, but I've seen that already. Like, even though I really enjoyed it and I don't quite remember it, I've seen it already. Whereas this movie I've never seen and I don't know anything about it,
Right.
I'm kind of the same way. I tend to, I have a subscription to this movie club. You have to buy it. There's a certain week you can buy it at the beginning of the year, and then, you're hooped. So this year I went for it. I couldn't afford it last year. And every month they send me anywhere from 3 to 5 Blu-rays.
Okay.
And
that sounds fun.
It's cool. Yeah, they basically they remaster all these old movies in really obscure stuff in some cases. But oh man, hang on. There was a reason I was bringing this up. Movies. Oh right, yeah. So like I try in order to keep up with those, I try to have to make sure I can't, as you say, I can't rewatch something because I've got this stack of movies I need to watch before next month when they're going to send me another stack of movies.
Right.
So it kind of helps, but I don't do a lot of rewatching. I'm a little bit the same. Like Gladiator. Before I watched Gladiator 2, I rewatched a handful of scenes on YouTube from the first one.
Right.
Because you couldn't make me watch the full thing again at gunpoint.
I did watch Rogue One for probably the 5th or 6th time when Andor ended.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was like, okay, now let me watch Rogue One again and see, because a friend of mine said that people weren't liking Rogue One as much after watching Andor. And to me, it actually filled out Rogue One better. Like, I liked it more because you knew the characters already, and they built on that, and I was like, I think this is better now. Like, and I loved it before. But that one
makes me happy to hear.
Huh?
So that just makes me happy to hear too, because I think Rogue One is such a solid movie.
Yeah, it's my favorite Star Wars movie.
Yeah, I think so.
And the Andor series was fantastic.
Yeah,
it wasn't just another Star Wars series.
I so badly want to watch that, but I cannot seem to focus. TV is my thing that I cannot focus whatsoever, unless I'm watching it with my wife, because then we'll watch tons of stuff together. But if I'm on my own, I just cannot. I cannot make myself do it.
Well, it doesn't matter to me if it's a TV show or a movie. The only advantage with binging a TV show is I don't have to think about what I want to watch. Like if I finish a movie, I'm like, oh, now I got to find something else I want to watch. What am I in the mood for? But if I'm watching a TV show and I have 10 episodes, I'm like, oh, well, I know what I'm watching for a while now because I'll just keep watching this. But even so, like if I'm watching it with somebody, I will watch a whole movie just in one sitting. But I think that's because I can interact with the person I'm watching it with.
Yeah. Same here.
And that makes the difference. So it's like, but if I'm just by myself, like my mind starts going, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. I should probably do that. I can't just sit here and watch this. Plus I'm fidgeting, like I want to be physically doing something else.
Yeah. And sometimes for me with the movie club, sometimes you just get a stinker.
Oh yeah.
And like there's these box sets they do called hometown horrors or homegrown horrors. And there are 3 hyper regional, usually shot on film horror movies from the 70s and 80s that they've found the rights to and restored and all this stuff. And sometimes you get real gems. But then sometimes, man, there was one, it was so boring. I tried to watch it with a commentary track because I thought, well, at least this, like someone will be talking to me about the movie while I'm watching it. But even the creators, all they could do was talk about how much their movie sucked.
Oh, gosh. Oh, my Lord.
And so I decided, well, I guess we're done here because even they are bored by this. So I'm going to chalk this one up to experience and just turn it off.
Wow. All right. So another one of these ideas that I wanted to throw to you guys. And this came about as a combination of replaying the game Control and also reading part of a chapter or two of Kenneth Grant's Hecate's Fountain, I believe. And for some reason, I was just drawn to read it. And I've read it. I mean, I read it ages ago when I first got it back in the 90s. But I haven't read it since. And I had started reading it at one point and then stopped. And then for some reason, I just felt this draw to continue reading it. And when I did that, this is what occurred to me. So what I wrote down is the idea that something may be trying to enter our world, but just leaves echoes or traces that we can't understand because they're just a remnant or a shadow of what tried to enter. So like something is trying to come in and communicate with us, but it doesn't have enough energy. And instead it just leaves a shell, or like I said, a shadow or reflection, an echo of some kind. And that's what we interact with, is just that remnant.
Oh, interesting.
So here we are thinking we're interacting with this intelligence, but that intelligence failed to get through.
Right. You're just getting part of it.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. And, it kind of feels like some of the old Keel ideas of like, the thing can't communicate directly to it with us. And so it sort of comes across as like chaotic and, scary and all over the place too. In its efforts to, just communicate. But I could certainly see, if reality is layers of consciousness and different consciousnesses or whatever, something like that, like you're just getting part of the signal coming back through, all the different layers of perception and filtering and everything else.
Like something is trying to come up through the water, but it can't quite make it out of the water, but it's still disrupting the water.
Yeah.
So you're seeing the disruption and you're going, what is this thing? But the thing that's actually causing the disruption, we have no idea about.
Yeah.
We're looking at the after effect. So the shadow person is the after effect of something trying to manifest in our reality, rather than being the thing that's manifesting in our reality.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe the negativity is also, it's frustration.
Well, I do think about that sometimes, right? I think about when people talk about their loved ones passing on, or why didn't I get if because one of the skeptical arguments I see is quite often is, well, so and so got this lovely afterlife experience with their departed loved one. I guess why doesn't everyone deserve that? Are they not good enough? Is it? And I think it's like, well, it's very likely that whatever awaits us after death, if there is a continuation of consciousness past the point of physical death, I think it's almost completely impossible to imagine what that would be like. And so consequently, I think once you're over there, you're trying to navigate a completely different world using rules that you don't really understand. You're trying to maybe apply the rules from what you knew from this life to that one. And it makes sense. You would be mad because, it's like playing a video game and you can't figure out the controls. It's like me trying to get through this this timing puzzle in Doom right now. I'm like, I can't figure out how this damn thing works. And there's definitely going to be a certain amount of frustration with that.
Yeah. I've thought that a lot too. In my head, right before you said video game, I was thinking of like claw machines at, like imagine if like you've got these crappy buttons that can only move two directions very poorly, as an analogy of like trying to communicate back to your loved ones on this earth. Who knows? I always kind of wondered if anybody around Harry Houdini ever actually had any experiences like that, because, when he died, he said he would try to like transmit, I think it was a way to decipher like a puzzle he'd left behind, or a code, I should say. And I don't know if anybody ever got anything worthwhile, but I always kind of am suspicious that somebody may have gotten something, but they didn't know what it was, so they didn't speak out about it.
Didn't his wife say that he had come through and then she recanted?
Something like that. I was going to say.
Yeah, I think so. But I can't remember. I think that may be what I'm pulling at in my head.
Yeah, I remember Paul talking about that on a past Ghost Story, guys. He was telling me about something along those lines.
Yeah. When my dad passed away, like I had like several dreams, with him coming to like talk and stuff like that. One of my sisters, before he died, had a dream where he was like packing to leave. And, she would be like, oh, can I go with you, wherever he was going? And he'd be like, no, you can't come right now. Kind of like it's a business trip sort of thing.
Right.
But yeah, so, and it wasn't like we, on the surface knew he was about to pass away.
Right. Huh.
Something I wonder too is in regard to like messages from beyond is, because we're in this world, this world is all that matters.
Right.
Right.
This is everything we know. Everything that we have built relies on this place because it's all here. And I wonder too, maybe when we cross over, maybe you kind of look back and go, oh man, that's over now. It's like when you're going through a difficult breakup and it's all that matters. Like you're sobbing because all you can think about is, man, we lived here. We had all these good times. Now it's gone. Even when someone dies, whatever you want to call it. But in time, you move on and you think, oh yeah, it's not, that was a thing and it's past and it doesn't mean it was bad, but it's not, it's not important enough to get hung up on. And I kind of wonder, maybe afterwards, because I think we have this idea of, well, afterwards is heaven. So afterwards is stasis. So obviously then you'd want to look back but maybe I've kind of always thought that whatever comes after is another stage of development. I don't necessarily think it's just stop.
Yeah.
Like it's nice to think that we all get to hang out in the clouds with Elvis, but I kind of, I've had dreams of loved ones, and I'm not saying that these are visitations, but I've had dreams of my loved ones, people I've been really close to, and they have, in my dreams, evolved over the years.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah. So like my uncle, he passed in 2010, I think it was. He was 55, really stand-up guy, worked at a drugstore, hard worker, super cool dude. Just boom, heart gave out, 55 years old, died on vacation. And a couple times I saw him. It took a while. Then I saw him in a dream, and I've seen him a couple times more, but when I've seen him a couple times more, his hair is longer now, and it was never long in life. He never had long hair, but it's kind of long and maybe a little bit even greasy. And he's just a little more rough, not in a bad way necessarily, but maybe more kind of who he wanted to be or who he was meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a similar experience with my grandfather. We were very, very close. And, in my dreams, we have come to speak to each other as equals instead of a child speaking to his grandfather.
Interesting.
And I used to, I would see him as an older man I knew. But now when I see him as a young man. I see him probably, in his 30s, maybe 40s. And so it's just it's not what I would expect. I would expect if I'm going to dream of a loved one, it's going to be constantly the thing that serves me, the thing that makes me feel better. I see like good old grandpa, the way I remember him. And so I just wonder, maybe there is an element of evolution, whereas my maternal grandmother who passed, I've only ever seen her maybe once or twice, and it's always from a distance. Every now and again I'll see her and she'll wave. She'll be off in the distance and she'll wave, And so, yeah, I just wonder, maybe there is like a progression even after we leave this world.
Well, I think where we go when we die, we're there now. Like, I think we deal with time here because our brains are limited intentionally for whatever reason. So that we have to experience things sequentially in order for them to make sense. And granted, some of us get precognition and things like that, or deja vu, which may be connected to us seeing things out of order. But I think that like our higher self we're an extension of our higher self. We have no conscious connection to our higher self, but there's a connection there. And so when we die, we just become that higher self. That focus of consciousness goes back to that with the experience of what you've lived.
Okay.
And maybe multidimensionally. I mean, we may be living multiple lives in different, realities. And we may be living, different lives in different times as different people simultaneously, like our higher self being like the palm of the hand and the fingers being like different lives and different times, but we're still that hand. So when we die, it doesn't really that we don't go anywhere. We just stop focusing here. Again, if you want to take a video game analogy, because video game analogies actually work quite well, we've stopped playing the game.
Right.
Yeah.
And now we're back to who but we never stopped being who we were when we were playing the game, but then we got something from the game by playing it. And when we finish the game or we die in the game, we're still us.
Yeah.
My only problem I have with that is it reminds me of a conversation I had with an author on the West Coast. And his thing was, he was one of these people who very much believes that basically it doesn't matter what you do to people in this life because it's just a play. And you wouldn't get mad at someone for stabbing Caesar in a performance of Julius Caesar, because they're just actors performing a role. And I think that lends itself to some pretty heinous.
Absolutely.
So that's my only problem with the video game analogy, is I think it sort of takes maybe some of the seriousness away from our actions on this side.
So this is coming from me, someone who feels bad if I have to hurt an NPC.
No, I'm not saying that you're a sociopath. That's not what I'm saying.
But I'm saying, like, it doesn't have to be that way. Like, I think there's an element of that there, but that doesn't mean, it doesn't give us license to just harm other people, because that harm is an experience too.
Right.
Yeah. So along those lines, I've always kind of wondered if, this is like kindergarten.
Right.
And, when you're out there looking back at this stuff and the people that are alive, it's very much like, they'll be here in a little bit.
Right.
It's like their day's not over. It's not time for school to let out yet for them. And not to reduce it to that either, like your point, Brennan, but, it's a necessary thing. And the morality here is what it should be, because those are the rules that are appropriate for here and what we're trying to learn, if you want to look at it as learning. But I do think that, if you've passed and you're on the other side looking back, you're probably not as concerned, because you're like, at some point that's going to be over for that person and they'll be here, whatever here is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of the way I always sort of rationalized it too. Because, just like we were talking, like I had those dreams where I talked to my deceased father and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, I know a lot of people have never had anything like that happen, and they feel like everything is very cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are people who have the near-death experience where they experience nothingness.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But they're conscious of the nothingness. And that's the interesting thing to me.
Right.
Even Cherylee Black, like her second near-death experience, she was terrified and she ran in the, in the astral form or whatever, and ended up in a place of darkness. Mm-hmm. And she said it was terrifying. But again, we put a lot of interpretation into this.
Yeah. I only understand it from this perspective.
Right.
It's impossible not to.
Yeah.
I wonder too, something, again, this has come up recently on the show, is this idea that no matter what you're experiencing, if you remember it afterwards, then it was an experience filtered through your brain.
Yeah.
Right. So, the brain is the seat of consciousness, whether or not the consciousness originates there or originates somewhere else. And I wonder, in cases where people come back not remembering anything, I wonder if it was simply they were so far gone that the brain couldn't retain the information.
Well, there's that, and you figure, okay, a dream is basically an altered state of consciousness. It's not normal consciousness. And how many times do we have a dream, and as soon as we wake up, we've forgotten it?
Yeah, that's fair.
And so I would think a near-death experience is far more of a different state of consciousness than a dream. So some people may come back and just not remember. But also, it seems like near-death experiences happen for a reason. Like someone's on the wrong path and they sort of correct it.
Yeah. Because
people change after near-death experiences, usually for the better. And not just because they had a close call with death. Like Cherylee, for one, if I'm remembering right, she was very involved with music and stuff. And after she was crushed by a truck and they didn't think she was going to survive, when she came back, she started going to school for more scientific subjects. Because that's what appealed to her. Like everything about her just kind of changed. Mm. And when you talk about morals, like it's hard to say, like, do animals have morals?
Right.
Or are they just behaving on instinct? Do we have morals because we have more power over our choices because we're not behaving on instinct?
I tend to think animals, you can see some evidence that when they are not constantly in a survival situation, that they will make a non-lethal choice. Like they have a functional society. It's organized differently than ours.
Yeah.
But like look at ant colonies. Like they have created far greater things than we have in terms of like structural complexity. It's just it's created according to their rules. Right. So I think what we call morality is probably maybe a more built-in thing, that when there is room for, like, when we don't necessarily have to constantly just worry about survival, there is this sort of flame that's allowed to grow a little bit in size and kind of allows us to experience each other on a deeper level. And I think that's true for animals too. Like I think what we call morals is sort of this thing that religion has co-opted because they act like they gave that to us.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Without God, you guys would just be running around doing X, Y, and Z all day. And most of the atheists I know are pretty law-abiding people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like you and me, Seriah. You and me don't like killing characters in video games because it just feels bad.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah. And I think that's the programming at work. Like that's our natural state. I think that's the grace in all of us that is allowed to flourish. I think that's what morals are. It just, again, people have kind of put a name to it and sort of claimed its origin, but I think it's in all of us.
And I think
I actually occasionally go ahead, Seriah.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think the primary moral should be don't harm things.
Yeah.
Yeah, do as little harm as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Saxon?
Go ahead, Seriah. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, what were you going to say?
Oh, well, like in anthropology, we would talk a lot about objectivism and relativism and all these things because morality would change across cultures,
Yeah.
And you could be convinced that something in one culture is correct or morally right, and in another culture it would be wrong.
Yeah.
And I always kind of wonder if part of, our experience on Earth is getting to be better is, arriving at something that's much more like, we're just not going to hurt anybody or anything or what have you. We're not going to destroy resources too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I always kind of wonder, like when, I don't think the things that we deal with most of the time are ETH, but if I were a thoroughly advanced civilization and I saw the Earth where, people are preying on other people, there's wars and famine, and you realize there's enough resources to take care of all of these things.
Yeah.
And then we still just basically like burn stuff for power.
Yeah.
Which is destructive too. I'd be like, we don't need to stop there. Those things on that planet that's got the moon around it, we should leave them alone a little longer. They're not ready to deal with us because they can't even be nice to each other.
Yeah.
And it's silly, but it's also like, when you think about it, very true.
Yep.
Because we can address all these things, but we don't have enough empathy for everybody to actually do those things.
Yep. And we're out of time, so that's a good place to stop that. We'll continue this on a Patreon. But I want to thank both of you. And where can people find you guys? Brennan?
You can find me Largely the Truth on Instagram, Blue Sky, Letterboxd, and Threads. And you can find the Ghost Story Guys everywhere you get your podcast. And you can find my horror fiction show, Fear Daily, also everywhere you get your podcasts and at feardaily.com.
And if people need to summon you, Saxon?
You've got to call my red phone, but only a few people have that number.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm around here, and Super Inframan is on Blue Sky and Instagram.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that. There's a lengthy Patreon to go along with this. And if you want to become a patron, it's only $3 a month. Just go to wheretheroadgo.com and click on the big Patreon link, and you can join up. I want to welcome a couple new patrons, Janice Haid and Castle McLaughlin. I hope you enjoy the show and the extra content. I assume you enjoyed the show. That's probably why you became a patron. So I hope you enjoy the extra content and the early content and the lack of commercials and, yeah, all of that stuff. There's also a chat in there, although it's not very well organized, so it doesn't really tell you when people are talking. But hey, we do have a Discord as well, and I do try to check that occasionally. All those links are at wheretheroadgo.com. All right, I've been trying to do like a quote or something at the end of each show, just a little inspired by Welcome to Night Vale. And I'm not really sure what this is going to turn into, but right now I think I'm just gonna do some. There's some song lyrics that always stick into my head, and these come from Sabbath. Now, if you don't like metal, you're not going to like Sabbath. So this record came out, blew me away when it came out. They were out of the UK. Came out January 15th, 1988. It's called History of a Time to Come, and there's a lot of the vocalist Martin Walkyier writes some of the best lyrics. And occasionally he gets a little punny, especially later on after he forms Skyclad, which is the first Celtic metal band ever. And eventually, like as you go down the Skyclad stuff, it becomes less heavy and more accessible, but still sounding very unique. So like, even if you don't like metal, you might like some of the later Skyclad stuff, because it's very catchy and folky and fun. But he always has great turns of lyrics, and on the first two Sabbath records, he talks a lot about sort of like paganism and stuff like that. And this particular song is about Pan. But there's one verse here I'm going to read because it always just sticks in my head. For each delve and greenwood, far wiser creatures play, and in their veins and sinews live the gods of yesterday. You can look up the rest of the lyrics if you want to see the rest of the song, even if you don't want to listen to it. And if you like thrash, well, you should go back and listen to Sabbath if you haven't. The first two, not the third one. Third one's horrible. First two, History of a Time to Come and Dreamweaver, absolutely amazing. Again, if you like thrash. All right, I will see you next time. You have been listening to Where Did the Road Go? This show is made possible in part from our Patreons, and we thank you and everyone listening for helping us continue this exploration of the strange. You can always find everything Where Did the Road Go related at www.wheredidtheroadgo.com. And thank you so much for your support.